Can you imagine a moment where the bonds of family, the love, the trust, suddenly unravel in the most heartbreaking way? What would you do if a simple, ordinary family gathering, a day meant to bring people closer, turned into something no one could have ever imagined? This is the haunting and deeply tragic story of Christy Sheats, a mother from Texas whose actions shattered her family forever. What happened behind those closed doors? Could this unimaginable tragedy have been prevented? And how does a mother, someone meant to protect and nurture, become the source of her daughter's greatest nightmare? Join me as we take a closer look at the chilling details of this devastating case. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. If you're fascinated by true crime stories that dig deep into the human psyche and unravel the unexpected, this is the place for you. We'd love to hear your thoughts as we uncover this tragic story together, so be sure to share them in the comments below. Let's get into it. Katy, Texas, a quiet suburban neighborhood where families come to build their dreams. It's here that the Sheats family lived: Christy, her husband Jason, and their two daughters, Taylor and Madison. From the outside, they appeared to be the picture-perfect family. Neighbors remember Christy as a devoted mother, always doting on her girls, while Jason was known as a hard-working and supportive husband. Social media was filled with family photos that painted a story of love and togetherness, vacations, birthdays, and celebrations. But behind those carefully curated images, there were cracks beginning to show. Cracks no one could have imagined would lead to the devastating events of June 24, 2016. Christy Sheats was a woman known for her strong personality. Friends often described her as passionate and outspoken, but those closest to her also knew there was another side, a side marked by deep personal struggles. Christy battled mental health challenges for years, including depression and anxiety, and had reportedly been on and off medication throughout that time. Her struggles only intensified following a series of personal losses. In 2012, the passing of her beloved grandfather devastated Christy. She inherited his firearm, a sentimental item that would later play a critical role in the unfolding tragedy, and just 2 months later she lost her mother, a second heartbreak that compounded her emotional turmoil. Jason, her husband, would later recall how these events marked the beginning of Christy's downward spiral. She was admitted to mental health facilities 3 times following suicide attempts and was actively seeing a therapist. Yet, despite these efforts, her behavior grew increasingly erratic, characterized by severe mood swings and mounting conflicts within her family. Jason Sheats, Christy's husband of over 20 years, was often seen as her opposite in many ways. A quiet, pragmatic man, Jason worked tirelessly to provide for his family. Friends described him as patient, level-headed, and deeply committed to his wife and daughters. Despite the growing tension at home, Jason served as the family's stabilizing force. He was the one who often stepped in to diffuse arguments, striving to keep the family functioning amidst the challenges. Jason's love for his daughters, Taylor and Madison, was evident in everything he did. Taylor, the eldest, was his confidante, the one he turned to for meaningful conversations. Meanwhile, Madison, the youngest, brought a light-hearted energy to their home, offering moments of joy even during difficult times. But Jason often found himself caught in an impossible position, torn between protecting his daughters and supporting his wife. It was a delicate balancing act, one that grew more challenging with each passing day. Taylor Sheats, at just 22 years old, was the family's dreamer. A recent college graduate, she was ready to start the next chapter of her life, filled with excitement about her future. She was engaged to her high school sweetheart, Ethan, and their love was a beacon of hope and joy in her life. Compassionate, driven, and known for her radiant smile, Taylor had a warmth that drew people in. But her relationship with her mother, Christy, was complicated. While they shared moments of closeness, Taylor often found herself navigating the storm of Christy's unpredictable moods. It wasn't easy, but Taylor remained resilient, her strength a testament to her character. Then there was Madison Sheats, the family's free spirit. At just 17, she was the vibrant heart of the household. She loved art and music, and her days were often filled with the simple joys of spending time with her friends. Madison had an infectious laughter that could light up even the darkest of moments. Madison was deeply protective of Taylor. The bond between the two sisters was unbreakable. They were each other's confidants, cheerleaders, and safe havens. Despite the tension and turmoil at home, Madison always tried to bring a sense of joy and positivity to her family. She was a ray of light in an otherwise difficult environment. June 24th, 2016, a day that began like any other. The morning started innocently enough. The Sheats family was coming together to celebrate Taylor's engagement. Jason had planned a simple lunch, hoping to bridge the growing divide within their home. Over coffee, there were faint smiles and soft laughter, a rare reprieve from the tension that had become their norm. But then, everything changed. "Hey, everyone! Can we all sit down for a minute?" Christy's voice rang out from the living room, unnervingly calm. Jason paused, his stomach tightening at her tone. It wasn't a question, it was a command. He glanced toward Taylor and Madison, both of them now frozen in place. Taylor's expression shifted from confusion to concern, her brows furrowing as she exchanged a look with her father. Madison hesitated, setting her phone aside with a reluctant sigh. "What's going on?" she murmured, her voice barely audible. Jason motioned for the girls to follow, his instincts on edge. As they entered the room, the atmosphere felt heavier, almost suffocating. Christy stood there, her back straight, her face unreadable. In the center of the coffee table sat a small wooden box, a familiar keepsake Jason hadn't seen in years. "What's this about?" Jason finally asked, his voice low, steady, but brimming with unease. Christy didn't answer. Instead, she reached out, her hand trembling ever so slightly as she lifted the lid. Time seemed to slow as she pulled out the object inside, her movements deliberate and hauntingly calm. And in that moment, the fragile semblance of normalcy shattered. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine," Christy said, her voice cold, devoid of any emotion as she stared at them. Her hand reached into the wooden box, and when she pulled it back out, the glint of a gun caught the light. A weapon they thought had been tucked away for years was now in her hands. Jason's breath caught in his throat. His heart pounded against his chest as the reality of the moment sank in. "Christy," he said, his voice trembling, desperate. "What are you doing?" Christy didn't respond, her expression eerily calm, her grip on the gun firm. Without hesitation, she raised it and pointed it at Taylor. Her movements were steady, deliberate, void of hesitation. "Stay back," Christy warned, her words flat, as if she were giving instructions, not a threat. Taylor froze, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "Mom, what?" she began, but the words caught in her throat as fear overtook her. Jason stepped forward, panic flooding his every thought. "Christy, stop! Please, put it down!" And then, before anyone could move, the air exploded with a deafening crack. The sound tore through the silence, sharp and final. Time seemed to stop, as the room filled with chaos, a scream, a gasp, and the unimaginable unfolding in an instant. The impact left Taylor staggering, her hand instinctively clutching her back where the bullet struck. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, searched her mother's face. "Why?" she whispered faintly before her legs gave out and she fell to the floor. "No," Madison cried, rushing to Taylor's side. Her hands trembled as she reached out, but before she could touch her sister, Christy shifted her focus, raising the weapon again. Madison froze in terror, tears streaming down her face. Her voice broke, filled with desperation, but Christy's grip didn't falter. "Madison, no." Jason's voice was hoarse, his panic rising. He tried to move toward her, but his feet felt rooted to the ground. The room held a chilling silence, broken only by Madison's pleading. "Please, Mom, don't do this!" Then another deafening shot rang out. Madison fell beside her sister, her hand outstretched toward Taylor as her body went limp. "Get down! Get behind the couch!" Jason shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of the moment. He dove for cover, his mind spinning as the gravity of what had just occurred overwhelmed him. "Run!" he yelled, though deep down he knew it was futile. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to escape the nightmare unfolding in their once safe home. Neighbors, startled by the chaos erupting from the Sheats' home, frantically called 911. Their voices trembled as they described the horrifying scene, desperate for help to arrive. By the time officers arrived, the scene had reached its boiling point. Christy stood in the front yard, the weapon still in her grasp. Her posture was rigid, her expression unreadable. "Drop the weapon," the officers commanded, their voices firm but edged with urgency. The neighborhood held its breath as they watched the standoff unfold, but Christy didn't respond. Instead, she took deliberate steps forward, her movements slow but unyielding. The officers repeated their commands, their hands steady on their holstered weapons, ready for what they prayed wouldn't come next. When Christy refused to comply and continued to close the distance, one officer, perceiving the immediate threat, made the split-second decision to act. The crack of gunfire shattered the heavy silence, and Christy fell to the ground, motionless. A mother, a wife, a figure once at the heart of a family, was now lifeless on the pavement. The tragedy had reached its devastating conclusion, but the questions lingered. What led Christy Sheats to this moment? What had unravelled so deeply within that house? As investigators sifted through the Sheats' home, they uncovered a chilling narrative, evidence that Christy had meticulously planned her actions. Notes scrawled with troubling messages and voicemails hinting at her intentions painted a horrifying picture. This was not a spontaneous act. It was calculated. Jason, consumed by grief and disbelief, revealed a painful truth during his statement. "She had so many opportunities to harm me," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But she didn't. She wanted me to suffer, to live with the unimaginable pain of losing our daughters. She knew how much I loved them, and that's what she wanted me to feel." Jason recalled a recent argument that seemed to push tensions even further. It was just a few days before. Christy and Taylor had a big fight about her fiancé, Jason recounted, his voice faltering. Christy told Taylor she couldn't see him anymore. She wanted to ground her, even though she was 22. Taylor was livid, and honestly, I sided with Taylor. I told Christy she's an adult. Grounding her won't solve anything. He paused, the weight of the memory evident. That argument wasn't just about Taylor's relationship. It was about control, and it only deepened the cracks that were already there. It felt like everything was unraveling, and we couldn't stop it. Jason Sheats, the sole survivor of that devastating day, was left to grapple with an unimaginable void. His home, once a sanctuary filled with love and laughter, became a haunting reminder of the family he had lost. Unable to bear the weight of the memories, Jason moved away, leaving behind the neighborhood that had been both his refuge and the stage for his greatest tragedy. But even distance couldn't quiet the questions that plagued him. Why had it come to this? Could something have been done to stop it? He replayed the events in his mind, searching for answers that would never come. The weight of his grief was compounded by the heavy burden of survival, of being the one left to carry the scars of what happened that day. This tragic story stands as a stark reminder of the importance of mental health awareness and intervention. It highlights the need to recognize the signs of distress in those we love and seek help before it's too late. It reminds us that beneath the surface, even those we hold dear may be fighting battles we can't see. Battles that, left unchecked, can lead to irreversible heartbreak. In the end, this story leaves us grappling with difficult questions. How do we protect our loved ones when the danger comes from within? Could we have seen the warning signs before it was too late? What do you think about this case? Were there signs that we missed? Could anything have been done to prevent this tragedy? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. And if you want to explore more stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Join us next time as we dive deep into another case that will leave you questioning everything.